Welcome to the Breech Birth podcast. I'm Sasha Hopkins, private midwife, breech birth educator, and your host. This is a space to hear the real, raw, and powerful stories of women who have experienced breech birth in all its layers. Each episode features honest conversations with women who've experienced breech firsthand, offering insight and reflection. This podcast was born from the knowing that these stories need to be heard to inform, connect, and reclaim the story of breech birth. Whether you're navigating breech birth yourself, supporting others, or simply curious, welcome and thank you. Hi, Beck. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to give our listeners a bit of context. Can you share, what year your baby was born?
My little girl was born last year in July.
So 2024. I've got to remember what year we're in now. And where were you located?
So we live in Toowoomba at the moment.
In Queensland, Australia, for those who aren't aware. And what sort of care did you receive in pregnancy and birth?
For her pregnancy, I did my own care. I didn't see any GPs or doctors during her pregnancy.
Yep. And did we have a vaginal or a cesarean birth?
We had a C-section.
And how many weeks were you?
42.
Beautiful. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. I am a mum of 4 kids. I have 3 older boys. I have had 2 free births out of my 4 kids. I've been married for 10.5 years now, and I served as a birth support worker, as a doula, for 4 years prior, and hope to get back to that in the near future once I'm capable. It's a bit about me.
And so you've mentioned you've had babies before. Would you mind giving just a little snapshot of each of those, starting from your first before we jump into your breech, so it gives a bit of context of your experience prior?
Sure. I come from the understanding that birth is very natural and we are designed to birth. And so my first, I had him at home. It was a long 39-hour labour, but very well supported, with my husband, my mum present, and that was very empowering. I was 18 at the time as well, so a lot of people thought I was very crazy. But I then went on to have my second planned to happen at home, but the support was different at the time, so I ended up transferring just for support reasons, but had him very quickly after arriving at the hospital. Unfortunately, that was a bit laced with some trauma for myself and my husband. But then I had my third a couple years later, and he was a beautiful rebirth, 5-hour labour at home, born in the pool. I had a slight detaching of my placenta towards the end of that labour. We didn't really discover till afterwards. We did call paramedics, but they were really lovely, and we didn't end up transferring. They just kind of observed, and then I said, "I'm good, you can go now." That was really healing for me to have him at home, and could not stop that birth. It was pain-free. All of that in attending births over the years during that period of time really taught me a lot about the continuing trust of the body, understanding the different mechanisms and hormones that go on to allow the body and the baby to communicate with the mum. And so I have always kind of done my best to tune into that, spent a lot of time in my pregnancies to really listen and focus in, to not rely on other people's ideas or speculations of what they see, which I think has played a really massive part in how my 4th pregnancy and then birth went.
Amazing. So what was the age gap between each one as well?
So it's 16 months with my first 2, and then 2 years, 2 months with the next gap, and then 5.5 years for my last 2, because we weren't sure if we were going to have any more. And then, she kind of came along. I had a miscarriage a year prior to falling pregnant with my daughter, which led to it being quite a difficult mental challenge with my pregnancy, because, as I know, a lot of other mums who've had miscarriages understand, you're constantly checking, you're constantly worried, you don't know. And that led me to have one specialty scan at 19 weeks, because I just was struggling to connect with this baby that was, I could feel, I knew they were there logically, but I was struggling to just connect with them in the reality of them actually being present. I had done a blood test really early on and knew that it was a girl, and we kept that a secret from most people. But this scan at 19 weeks was very good. And they were really lovely to do that for me because they usually wouldn't, because I'd had no prior confirmation of pregnancy. The doctor hadn't, talked to anyone. And I think I dealt with quite a bit of exhaustion. So I was attending to my body and different minerals and things that it needed. But this scan was interesting because I didn't really look at it the same way at the time as I did after. It showed us stuff was going on that I chose not to pursue further. We could see her brain on the scan looked different. It just didn't present as normal.
And the sonographer said that?
So she did, like, she owned that place. And so she's like, I've never seen this on a scan before. I recommend you go and get a diagnostic scan. And I had images and pictures from that scan and went over and over with it and just took my time and prayed on it. And ultimately, when it wouldn't change how I would see my pregnancy, it wouldn't change how I would tend to myself and how I would ultimately choose to labor and birth. And so I chose not to invite more possible fear and worry and concern when I already had enough going on, as there was a lot of other personal stuff happening in my life and in my marriage at the time. So as like a little bit of snapshot of kind of painted the picture down the track. But I had a lot of pre-labor, I would say, off and on stuff. I had a lot of emotional releases in the weeks leading up, starting at about 36 weeks, which is actually really early for me. All my babies, I've only had one at 40 weeks. The other ones are like almost 42 weeks for the other two. So I knew that. And having been a birth worker, you understand birth is unpredictable. And knew my gestational normalcy was later. So I was quite shocked that I actually quite struggled a bit from early on. And I think some of that was due to I had quite a lot of side pain in my back. Didn't really know why. It would just ache. And there was very few positions that would relieve it, and that would be short term. And the further I got along, the less relief I would have. So that was very taxing as well. But I kind of went through quite a few different emotional releases leading up to that.
For you, did you do any body work like chiro or osteo, anything for that tension or that pain that you had going on?
I did. It went along with what I was doing. So that would have been the only thing that I consistently did for myself in caring in pregnancy outside of nutritional wise, is I was seeing a chiropractor before I was pregnant. So I just kept seeing them. And then when we moved up to Toowoomba, I was about 32 weeks and saw a new chiropractor up here. And so continued to see her every 2 weeks and then every week leading up to, which it was a little bit of relief, but unfortunately not enough to kind of keep it away for long enough. But I'm grateful that I had that there because my hips didn't get a bit funny. So it was very helpful. Yeah. So I think once I kind of reached 40 weeks, I was getting more into the idea of accepting, okay, like I know this is the usual for me. This is normal. I shouldn't be like so fixated on it happening earlier. And I think it was just my body was just doing things differently that it hadn't really done before. A lot of different prep that I wasn't really used to in past pregnancies. A lot of racks and hicks, like a lot. It was just out of my normal. And it threw me a little bit. And early on, when I first found out I was pregnant, I realized that the estimated due date for the baby that I miscarried was I would be 42 weeks with this baby. And I didn't even realize, how close that it all happened. And so early on, be really, really special, a nice connection with your sister to come on their due date. And I kind of had let that go. But then as closer I got, I'm like, oh, you listened to me, didn't you? Like, because you heard me. And so you're going to do that. And so it got a little bit easier mentally, but still very physically draining. Leading up to it, everything, ticked all the boxes. You make plans and you make appointments, and all of that got done, which was good. It was very good. And so not very much to my shock at all. I went into labour very early on the Tuesday of when I would be 42 weeks. And I think it was about between 2 and 3, I noticed. And then I kind of stayed in bed till I noticed more about 4. I think I managed to stay in bed until like 6 and kind of just chatted with support people and let them know what was going on.
Who did you have planned to support you for this one?
So I had my best friend as my main support. My husband and I weren't together at the time, so he wasn't going to be there. So I had done a lot of emotional mental prep with that as well, because it's always been my support. So my best friend was my main support. Then I had my mum coming up as well. She's been at every labor and all but one birth so far. And then I had my sister, who was also at my last, because my boys are really good with her. She's a very much loved auntie. So she was there as a main support for them, and also for any, like, she was in charge of the camera that I had set up. I had a birth photographer who she's also works as a doula, and I had my husband's auntie. And I don't usually have so many people in my space, but it was purely because I didn't have my husband there, and I wanted to make sure I had all that I needed for whatever I needed help with, to make sure that I stayed on track while I was laboring. So that was really important to me. I had taken my time setting my space, but I'd had a lot of this little affirmations and scriptures around. I had a birth pool, but I never wanted to fill it. It just kind of sat there.
Had you used the water with the others?
Yeah, so I had a water birth with my first, I had a shower birth with my second, and I had a water birth with my third.
It's interesting that you didn't want water this time.
Yeah, it was. And I felt that during my pregnancy as well, where I'm like, I want it there, but I'm not instantly drawn to that. And again, it just makes so much sense to me now. But I feel like from active labor was around 7, just when I noticed that it was more consistent, it had more of a punch to it. And I just kind of dotted around. I told my boys that there was no school today, which they were very upset about. They wanted to go to school and didn't seem bothered that their sister was coming at all. Typical children. And yeah, I just kind of potted around in my room and then out in my space, got my music on to try and just focus. I feel like once I kind of got out into my space, it picked up quite a bit, and I was having to really focus. I was trying to sing about, I think, 8 or 8:30. My best friend arrived, which was amazing. Her presence was just so beautiful and perfect for me. I was looking at the wall at one stage, and I saw one of the cards I had up. I don't remember the exact words, but essentially it was saying, like, in his will, like, he's got this. And it, at the time, made me like tear up because it just felt really powerful. And I know it felt powerful. It's just exactly what I needed in that moment. And so I kept moving through, had a birth comb, which I've never used before, but I absolutely love. It was amazing. So good. I don't know why I haven't used the one before. I had my diffuser on. I had everything going, all my music that I'd pre-planned. I think my auntie and my mum got there about the same time. My sister was coming with my mum, which was about 9:30, I think, roughly. The kids weren't even in the room. They were just off doing something, whatever, in the house. And I was just moving around, kneeling next to the pool. People asking me, do I want to fill it? Do I want to get in? I was just like, no, I don't. Like, I just want to use it as something to lean against. And things like really felt like they were getting super, super intense in a way that I was not used to. I started getting a lot of hip pain, really, really low, like back pain, but really low, which I kind of was like, I don't really know how to handle this. I don't know. I kind of was scrambling my mind back and forth for different things to help, like hip squeezes and then just massages and then moving and being in different positions, legs, down or up or on the side of the pool. And then it kept going. And I didn't even do this I wasn't rationally thinking about it, but I just was putting my hands on my hips and just like squeezing and pushing down because like nothing else.
Doing your own hip squeezes.
Yeah, essentially, because nothing gave any sort of relief. And even that was, the most I could get. I started feeling fairly pushy early on, probably around midday, because I know it went on for a while. And I was like going back between like the idea of, do I follow this or do I not? But then if I tried to follow it, it just hurt more. And so I didn't do it. And then when I kind of went through it a couple times, it was a bit more present in some of the more shoujas that I had. My waters broke, and that would have definitely been around midday, between 12 and 1. That was amazing. To have your waters break and having not had them happen outside of a pool before was also interesting. And we quickly realized that she was Breech, which didn't concern me whatsoever. It was just like, oh, okay,
What made you realize that she was breech at that point?
meconium. So
Okay.
straight away there was meconium thick. So it was just, I think we figured out every time I would bear down, there was just meconium. So I didn't have any concern. I hadn't been able to figure out a position very well in the last weeks of my pregnancy. I was very confused as to how she was sitting, but I had felt there was definitely body parts in my pelvis, but I just didn't know which ones.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to have her breech. And the contractions at that stage were like half a contraction in the first stage and half a contraction in the second stage with pushing. So they were like swinging between that middle stage. I wasn't quite fully pushing. It wasn't not. So that was very difficult to kind of get my head around of what am I doing? Do I stay here? But then that's painful. But then if I try and push, that's also painful, but in a different way. So it was a bit of a mind boggle of where's my body going. Throughout all of this, that hip pain was crazy. And I felt like my hips were literally going to fall apart, like crumble and break. I have never experienced anything like that. I've supported mums who have told me that, but I've never experienced that myself until this birth. And I 100% believe that was my body communicating with me, because her body and her bottom never quite descended a lot. I kind of felt it coming down, and I'd feel like, oh, I'm making progress. Like, yes, this push is working. And then she'd go like fully back, and there was no progress. And that happened for probably about an hour, where I was like, I don't know what the heck is going on. She's not coming down. No position changes I'm doing is pulling her further down. We can't see anything. I can't feel anything. I was just in agony, which I hate to say because I've had a pain-free birth, and I was like, what is this? I'm in complete agony and I cannot cope. And for a little while, I was in my head. I hadn't voiced anything, being like, I just don't know how to kind of progress through this, but also being like, but is this transition? I'm not sure. And I kind of eventually voiced to them, like, I don't know how to keep going. This is how I'm feeling. I'm just in a lot of pain. I don't know if I should cry out or if there's another way that I could kind of cope with this. The pushing my hips down got really intense. That was like the only thing I could do. I had to do that to just get through the next surge. I said that I wanted to try the shower because I didn't want to fill the pool, but I thought I'd try the shower and see how that worked. And in between being out in the lounge and getting into the shower, I voiced that I needed to go in. And it wasn't I don't know, maybe I need someone else to help me. Maybe I need an epidural, whatever. It was, I need to go in. I need a C-section. It was, I'll try the shower where she's not moving down. And I don't think she's going to move down. Nothing's progressing. I'm in immense pain and she's not moving. So I went into the shower, and that was really hard. Had quite a bit of a cry in there. And, my best friend, thankfully, was really close majority of the time, always there, so I could hold on to her. I've never made such cries in any of my labors. In how I was feeling, it was really difficult to kind of move through. And I remember saying, she came back into the room at one point, and I said, have you called the ambulance yet? Are they on their way? And then she was like, oh, I think they're just doing that now. And in my head, I'm like, why are we taking so long? And so there's a period of time that I was like, I'm really frustrated with everyone because I've told you that I want to transfer and I want a C-section and this is what's happening and this is what I need to do. But you're still out there talking about it and deciding what can we do to help her so that she doesn't feel like she needs to go in, because they're like, this is something she would never suggest. My history of birth, how I support women, how I had my own labors. Everyone's like, what the heck? Why is she asking for a C-section? This is, my photographer had her own breech babies before. And so people ask, they aren't talking to her like, maybe you should go in and help her. You've had breech before. Maybe this is why, she needs someone else who's had experience. And then my auntie came in and she got down real soon. And I know why she did it, because leading up in our prep talk, it was, I've struggled to kind of keep myself centered at times, and I have needed people to kind of help firmly pull me back in line if I'm not coping. And so I know why she did it. But at the time, it was very frustrating because she's there sitting, I'm on the floor of the shower, and she's like, you can do this. Like, you can push through this. Like, you just in a really, really stern voice. And I was just looking down, and I'm like, if I look up, I'm going to like growl or yell at you or something. I'm just going to nod my head, and just not say anything to you because I'm really annoyed at you right now. I was just like, just get the ambulance here, please. And I think they were even calling my husband, like, he's like, why the heck would she doesn't do this? Something's wrong. Like, he's like, C-section, what? So they eventually got there. Beautiful. I was very blessed with the paramedics came in, 2 lovely males. I don't remember. I think I was in the shower, yes, when they got there. And so we kind of got myself put together. But they were very lovely, brought the bed in, gentle with me. No one made me lay down anywhere. I was able to be up all fours as I was still contracting and moving more into second stage by that time as well. Being like, oh, can we see ahead? Can we see anything? What's happening? And being like, no, baby's breech. No, you can't see anything. That's just meconium. Everything's fine. Baby's moving fine. I wasn't worried at all, ever, in any process. Yeah, any part of the process, I didn't worry. And I actually felt like I had to remind everyone else that I was fine and that she was fine through this process. I'm like, it's okay, guys. I'm making the right decision. This is what I need to do. The ride, thankfully, in
Did someone go in the ambulance with you?
no, so I don't know why, but my best friend drove behind, so she was there quickly once I got in. But the two guys that were in the ambulance in the back with me were really lovely. I asked for the green whistle, they gave me the green whistle. I was talking about, like what I wanted to do when I got there, and they just kept being like, can we see anything? And my body just kept bearing down. It was just doing its own thing at that point. Like, just don't make me lay down. If I can stay up on this bed, leaning on the top of the bed, that I'm happy. That's all good. And we got in, and it's always quite like a not nice feeling when you have to be wheeled through. Back of emergency where they take you and you're like on the stretcher waiting while they process you. That's never a nice thing to be there. Honestly, I feel like my mind is like blocked out what that was. I have snippets, but I can't really remember a lot of that. I really just remember when they wheeled me into birthing suite and all the midwives are there, trying to just assess the situation. And they're going, okay, I have the gas. I need to breathe. I'm not breathing very well. And they're like, can we do a bedside ultrasound to just figure out what's going on? And I'm like, that's fine. As long as you're really quick. I want a C-section. Do your thing. Figure it out.
So you're still very much, I want a C-section, not let's see what happens here.
No, I never swayed from that. Anyone that I spoke to, I was just very clear, like, this is what I need to do. And so they did their bedside ultrasound. They were good. They were quick. They were like, oh, we're not really sure what we're seeing. This is all really confusing. Baby's definitely breech. Can we do an internal? And I just said, yes, that's fine. Be really quick. Like this, there is not much break between these surgeries right now. And so they did that again. They were very quick, just confirming. She said, I think it was like 5 centimeters or something. And that wouldn't have stayed like that for very long, I'll tell you that.
No.
So yeah, they were then like, oh, yep, we recommend a C-section because she's breech. And I'm there going, I've already asked for a C-section. Can you please get the papers? And I think I sounded a bit like bothered with them because I did. I've already asked for one. Can you please get me the papers so I can sign them so you can send me to theatre? When all that was happening, I think in the middle of like the ultrasound and doing the internal exam, my best friend got there and she was like, what's happening? Is everything okay? And I'm just like, it's okay. We're doing this. This is happening. I'm fine. Baby's fine. Still reassuring everyone but myself. And so they finally brought over the papers so I could sign them. And thankfully, we're fairly quick after that to get me off to theatre. The best friend came and then we got into theatre and the doctor was talking about putting me under. And I went, no, why? We don't need to be put under. I'm fine. Baby's fine. Oh, it'll take too long. It takes like 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm not going to sleep. And there was another guy, I don't remember what his position was, but he kind of spoke up for me and kind of was like, well, we can at least give it one try, right? We'll give it one try. And if we don't get in the first try, then we'll go to sleep. And I was like, okay, fine, but I'm not going to sleep. And so they got me in position on my side with my knees up, fully bearing down. I'm just like, I'm in my head. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them what my body's doing, but I didn't know what they were visually seeing. But for me, I'm like, my body's really bearing down right now, guys. I just don't want to tell you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to alert anyone to make it any more stressful. And so they pressed my back, but right before they put the needle in, I heard him say to someone and go, oh, you haven't done this before, have you? You can do this.
God.
So then they had someone practicing on me. Thank the Lord it went smoothly and that it was straight in and there was no issues. There was no muck around. But oh my goodness, I'm there going, you're what now? Getting someone. Okay. But thankfully, yeah, I went in and it was fine. And it happened, within the next minute. I was very not aware of my legs, which is an interesting sensation. I don't know how long it took them from prepping everything, doing all the cuts or whatever, to when she was born. She didn't make a sound when she was born, and they didn't show me. No one offered to lower the drapes. I wasn't really aware at that point to really kind of say much.
Were you talking with your friend who was there?
Yeah, so I think she said to me, because I don't even remember what she said much of, but she said that I'm pretty sure she had requested things, but then they didn't do things. They kind of, I guess, ignored. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but at the time I didn't understand because she was born and I only knew because they said spina bifida on site and then they took her over to the warming table who works in her. Apparently they didn't not CPR, but they had to
Breaths? The mask on the face?
yeah, so they said they resuscitated her for a very short period of time. She didn't eat a lot. And I was like, well, of
Okay.
course, this C-section baby. That's not unusual. But she didn't really make any cries. And when they said spina bifida on site, my friend and I were like, hang on a second. We heard that, but no one's talking to us. And she kind of said to them, did you guys say this? And they were all standing around her crib. She couldn't see her. So they were like hiding her from view and kind of like not answering when she asked if that's what they said. They weren't being very clear at all. And then they eventually kind of were like, oh, yeah, we've got to take her out of the room, we're going to take her to special care. And you can see her as we walk, take her out. I could have put her on my chest. But again, lots of things they didn't do. And so I kind of saw her just for a little bit as they rolled her beside me. And saw that she had a really big head. So she had spina bifida and she also had severe hydrocephalus, which is really shocking. But also, I was just kind of like, I didn't even know what to think at the time. So they rolled her back. I saw her. I know she heard me. I don't even know how to explain that, but I know she heard me. But anyway, they rolled her out. And then as she was leaving, I wanted my friend to go with her. And so I was like, I don't want her to be alone. I didn't know where my mum was at the time. I didn't know where my husband was. They were out in the waiting room, but no one was telling them anything. And my friend didn't know what to say to them because she's like, what do I say? What am I allowed to say? And so they were unfortunately freaking out, thinking the worst, or at least my husband was. So she went with Bob. They were asking, can we do Hep B? Can we do vitamin K? And I was like, no Hep B, maybe vitamin K because she'll need surgery. So I ended up allowing that and they took her out. But they were taking a really long time with me while this was going on. And I was kind of laying there going, I've been in theatre before with clients. Straightforward, it's not usually that long. It's fairly stitch up. And so I asked her, I'm like, is everything okay? And she said, you have a boggy uterus. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. That just you've got a boggy uterus. And my stitch was longer because they didn't realize her head size. And so on my right side, it goes longer. But I later found out that I had bled 1.2 liters during this, and they really struggled to get the bleeding to stop. And so that just took quite a bit of extra time to get me out of theatre. I felt considering I felt fairly present during it. I had a little bit of nausea, so they gave me some nausea meds, but otherwise, they didn't really need to give me anything. I felt stable, just all the shaking. Eventually, everything was done. I got out of theatre, into recovery.
So they managed to control the bleeding just with medication then?
Yeah, they usually have to ask for reports from hospital, but they sent it all to me alongside with my daughters as well. So it was all there. So
That's good.
I can see all they gave me. I can see that they gave me pain meds anally, which I did not know about, did not get asked to consent to any of that, which was interesting that I found out afterwards. But yeah, kind of everything was finished off and they sent me to recovery and she was in special care. So on the way from recovery to the ward, they took me by special care to see her. She was right by the door, which was really nice. And so when she heard me, that was when she made her first cry. So that was really nice that, she kind of waited for me. But my mum and my best friend had been with her at that point as well, which was really good. But it makes so much sense now. So much that happened, her positioning, why I had to go in. Well, there was no question in my mind of what I needed to do, but still so grateful that I waited for my body to go into labor on its own. And yes, that provided different things for her and her outcome. But I still look back and people ask me questions, oh, you didn't have this care in your pregnancy and you didn't have this and all this happened with her. Like, did you know? And it's like, I didn't know. But if I had done something, there would have been a whole lot more fear pushed onto me, pushing to even abort her, because now hearing other mum stories when they do know a whole lot of stuff, she wouldn't have been a candidate for in utero surgery as well due to where her spina bifida is. So I knew that was the right time. Like when I chose not to pursue further after that first scan, that she then still was able to initiate labor on its own and come when she was ready, which I think has been a massive benefit to her. And thankfully, I knew enough about the body to be in tune with how it was communicating with me.
And so you got to see her briefly from the bed in the nursery and went to the ward. How long before you were able to get up and go and see her?
They were prepping to life flight her because so she was born at my local hospital, and we had to life flight her to a tertiary hospital for surgery. So that happened fairly quickly. She was born at about 3:10, and by early evening, I think 2 or 3 hours later, they were life flighting her. So I saw her in the special care nursery on my way through, and then before they took her, the guys that were taking her actually came past when she was all prepped and ready to get on the flight. They brought her by my bed on the ward, which was really nice. So I got to touch her. That was the first time I got to touch her hand when she was in the midi crib, but I didn't actually get to go and see her or hold her until, so she was born on Tuesday afternoon. I was transferred down to that hospital Wednesday evening. So we overnight Tuesday, Wednesday evening, when they finally had transport to take me down. And I saw her Wednesday night.
And had she had surgery yet?
She had had her surgery by that point, yes, to do her spinal closure, and they put a little reservoir in her head to be able to manually remove some of the excess fluid. Yeah, so Wednesday night, and then I didn't hold her till Thursday morning because for some reason no one offered for me to hold her Wednesday night when I got there. It was just like you see her for a bit and then you go up to your room. So
I wonder if maybe because she had surgery and they were trying not to handle too much or something.
they could have. I think they just think about it because as soon as I was there in the morning, it was like, oh yeah, you can hold her. Things like when we were feeding, we were thinking we had to have her on her tummy because she couldn't lay on her back to feed her with the head to the side. And then later on, they were like, oh yeah, you can have her on her side. Whatever, easy, just don't have her on her back. Yeah, there was just lack of communication and in that situation, unfortunately.
And so what did that nursery setting look like, and the care for her and your visits, to give a really clear picture for those who might have that experience?
Yeah. So I can't really say much on my home hospital because she was there for such a short period of time. I didn't really have any time in special care with her. But once we moved to NICU, it's like there's multiple rooms. The room we were in, there's like 8 beds. There's 8 beds. You can visit them 24/7. So as soon as I was there, whenever I wanted to go down from my room to see her, I could whenever I wanted.
So different level at that particular hospital?
1 or 2 levels higher than where the NICU was on the ward. And yeah, you go in, you see them whenever. I found that I just had to speak up, whereas I know a lot of other parents have been told, oh, you can't hold them, but it's your baby. And there's always a way to work out a way to safely do it. So I just had to speak up a lot. I was sending down milk whenever I had milk. So I'd call a wardie and be like, I've got milk. You guys need to take it down to the NICU so she could have that. It was a bit different when I wasn't on the ward. But while I was there, it was quite easy. I could take a wheelchair. Someone would wheel me down in a chair. When I needed that, once I was up walking, I just took myself down. And thankfully, it was very straightforward. They are quite welcoming whenever of parents. You'd have some nurses that weren't so forthcoming. We had some issues a couple times with them feeding her before my visit in the morning, and I always came at like 7 o'clock in the morning to give her first feed. And so, there was some communication that was lacking, but for the most part, the nurses were really good at explaining how everything was going. If I hadn't been there for a few hours, how she went overnight. It got to a point where they were kind of like, oh, she's my baby that I'm rostered on to care for, but mum kind of comes and does everything anyway. So they didn't need to do a whole lot. I did all her cares. I picked her up, I put her down. I figured out early on by asking them, to help me kind of learn the ins and outs of what that looked like on how to pick her up, because we couldn't put her on her back, her head was a lot heavier. So there was just different ways around caring for her and holding her.
And I imagine nappy changing would have been difficult, not being able to lie on her back as well.
Yeah, that was interesting that they had to teach me how that would go.
Did you do it on the side or on her belly?
Her tummy.
On her tummy, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just different, just doing it backwards, really. Because you could still move her and lift her up and lift her legs up and her bottom up and stuff, but you just couldn't lay her flat on her back for quite a few weeks. I think it was 5 weeks, I think, that she was completely on her back. Yeah.
So with the spina bifida, she had the surgery to close the hole. So for those listening, there's a hole to the spinal cord. Is there any follow-up surgery or anything in regards to that that's offered after?
It depends for her. So some spina bifida, there's like a sac outside covering it. Sometimes it's fully open. Hers was open, but it was flat. So it didn't appear that there was any spinal cord protruding or anything like that from her spine. It was like this big.
Okay, so about the size, just for those who are only listening, about the size of a 50-cent piece, maybe?
Yeah,
A bit small.
maybe 20-cent piece, I'd
20-cent piece,
yeah.
Which is big on a baby.
It is, but compared, I guess when I think of other ones I've seen, other babies with spina bifida, hers was quite small. Yep. It's very low down, so hers is sacral, S1 and S2 sacral level. And so for her closure was very straightforward because it didn't span a large point. It was a very straightforward stitching. She never had any leaking. If they have leaking, if the skin breaks, then they go back in, they restitch it back together. They sometimes put in like their drainage points. But for her, thankfully, it was very straightforward and she didn't have any leaking. She didn't have any tearing in the stitching or in the skin. It wasn't pulled so tight that would happen, because that does happen sometimes. And we haven't had to have any other further surgery for her actual spina bifida site. There is possibility down the line that she'll have a detethering surgery, but so far there is no effect of her on that. And I think that's more so with the scar tissue that has created tethering. Sometimes it's the muscles, but so far I think it's just scar tissue that's created some tethering in her spine, and that can be worked out. But so far we haven't had anything other than her shunt, which was placed at day 10. We haven't had any further surgery.
Just for those listening, that's to release the fluid on the brain. Yeah. And so will that stay there for her for life, or is that something that you won't need eventually?
They say she will need it for life, but I'm constantly researching and looking into ways to understand how to help the body redo things and find other pathways. There's a procedure called an ETV, where essentially they open up under one of the ventricles in the brain to drain that way. Mm-hmm. That has a 50% chance of being successful in babies, but the older you get, the higher chance it has of working. So you can go from having a shunt to doing an ETV, which means that you can get the man-made object out of the body. Obviously way less risk. So that is the one thing that we will be looking to in the future, if nothing else comes up, is to do that particular surgery.
Yeah, interesting. And so with either of those, with the hydrocephalus and the spina bifida, are you aware of any things that could affect her for growing up? Like obviously the spina bifida is in relation to the nervous system. Is that potentially going to affect walking and crawling and things as she gets more mobile?
Yeah, so it really depends each individual case. Even kids who have the same lesion level, so if there's another kid that had S1, S2 level, they might present completely different to her. She has feeling, and from birth she's had movement all the way down to her toes. She has low muscle tone, so she's had to build a lot of strength So she's a year now and she can stand on her legs for short periods of time. She rolls one way. She sits up pretty well now, but that's all through therapy. So we've had to do a lot of therapies. We don't know if she'll fully walk. We don't know if she'll walk some when use a wheelchair. For other parts, she tires easily. So a lot of kids with spina tire easily. We do expect her to walk, but she seems to have everything going for that. But she will likely need a wheelchair for when she tires. So we're looking into walkers at the moment because she's standing so well. We know that the hydrocephalus, we don't know exactly what parts of the brain have been affected. It's hard to see because of all the fluid. They were saying she's missing her corpus callosum, but she doesn't really present like she's missing a corpus callosum. She she has a lot that doesn't make sense on imaging.
Could you explain to our listeners what that would look like if that was missing?
Corpus callosum has a lot to do with how we use both sides of our brain. So it's a part that sits in the middle of both sides of your brain, and it's like the communication pathway, essentially. So coordination, speech, so how she uses her hands. She does mirror. That's the only thing that indicates maybe there's an effect on the corpus callosum, because she does mirror, but she's learning not to. So she's moving out of that even. It can affect, again, with walking. So it can affect, she'll have to do more effort to tell her legs to move one at a time and then the other. Calling, speech, it can affect her ability to speak, but again, that doesn't seem to be affecting her. She has AMSD, which is a type of hearing loss that affects the nerves in the brain. So her ears are fine, but the nerves in her brain, we're not sure if they're just very thin. We don't know if one's present, one's not, but she does hear, so there is a good chance that she is. But again, we don't know how that's affecting her speech. There's a lot of unknown right now. There's a lot of question boxes of, well, we think this and we think that. They thought she would be blind. She's definitely not blind. She has great vision. She says words. She makes a lot of noises. She is delayed in the aspect because she's not able to move the same because of, having to compensate for her head. It takes a lot of her energy. She hasn't been able to focus so much on play and how to move things, and because she mirrors with her hands, it makes it hard for her to play with different toys, and she can't move around the same way that another 1-year-old would. So she is delayed in that, but it's not really because she's not cognitively able to. She understands, when she wants to ask for food, she puts her arms up. When she wants to be picked up, she says go. She understands a lot of different directions and words that we say. So she's definitely cognitively there, which based on it, you wouldn't expect that. I had a neurologist tell me that she thought she had 20% of her brain when she was a newborn. So there's just a lot that they say that she's not presenting. Every specialist that she sees, they read her chart and they then see her and go, hang on, what? This isn't the child you're supposed to see. You're supposed to be massively delayed. You're supposed to be not sitting up. I was told she wouldn't sit up. She wouldn't feed herself. She wouldn't recognize me. Like, so much that they assume based on a scan. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a miracle.
She is. The fact that she triggered her in labor, she said when she was ready to come, and she kept herself safe by being breech. She's protected her brain.
Absolutely. And how long did she end up being in hospital for before you were able to bring her home?
So she was in NICU for 4 weeks. We then transferred to a children's hospital near us and was there for just under 2 weeks. We came back to our home hospital for the weekend. So we had to organize oxygen. So when we came home, she was on a quarter of a liter when we came home. And that was 24/7 because as a nurse, they sleep so much. We had a sleep study. She went up to half a liter when we had the sleep study because she had central sleep apnea, which can be affected by Chiari malformation, which is just when the back part of the brain it sits at the base that can be pushed down into the spinal canal. I think that's what it's called. Essentially, back of the brain. And that can cause sleep apnea. So it's just causing pressure on a bunch of different things. And so she would pause breathing for like 10 seconds at a time, multiple times when she was sleeping. She has mostly grown out of that. She still has pauses, but she is safe off oxygen. We only have it on now at nighttime. It's 125 mils of oxygen. and she only needs it because it'll help her sleep better. So
it's just for nighttime when she's asleep?
yeah, when she's asleep at night. And we know that if...
And she keeps it on? I feel like a
Yeah,
1-year-old would be pulling it off.
I know, it's so crazy. I think she's just used to all these things being on her and people being around her and prodding her. So that's what they said. They're like, if it becomes a problem, then we'll just get rid of the oxygen because she's okay, she's safe off it, but she'll sleep better still with it on, more restful sleep. But yeah, no, she doesn't bother. She actually calms when I put it on. She just lays there and lets me do it.
She probably knows, oh, yes, I'm going to have
Yeah.
the best sleep.
Yeah, exactly. She gets it. Same with her hearing aids. She doesn't pull them out. She lets me put them in. She leaves them alone, which is really nice. But yeah, we went from a Friday to the Monday of our 5th week at our main home hospital, and Jack was literally just to organise oxygen that was delivered on the Monday. So we went home on the Monday, and she was 6 weeks on Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how were her brothers with her? Did they get to see her much while she was in hospital, or was it all kind of come about once you got home?
So they came to see her and me about once a week. They stayed at my mum's house. She's amazing to have all my 3 children for almost 6 weeks. Actually, not was, because we only got one back at the 6 weeks mark. Yeah, and they were pretty good. My 8-year-old is ASD, and so he was the one that kind of was like, I don't want to hold her, but I'll kind of like look at her. And when he first came in the NICU, he was just kind of like, there's all these machines and beeping things. But the other 2 boys were like right up there, like this is this new baby. And they didn't get it, but it was just like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. So they were really good. They coped really, really well. They're very resilient, which I don't want my kids to have to be resilient like that, but they were. And so I appreciate that. And we all coped fairly well. I know that when they were home with my mum, they did really good. And, we just got the time we could when she could bring them in. We got my eldest back first. So I kind of like gradually adjust in once we got home. And then so we got home, on the Monday. He came back on the Wednesday, and then the rest of the boys on that weekend, which was good. It was just, kind of like nice gradual changing into the new normal.
Yeah, well, that's good. And did you manage to breastfeed? Like, how did that look? Because that would have been difficult as well with that whole situation.
Yes. No, I did. And I wanted to give up. She was very determined once again that she was going to breastfeed. And the lactation consultants there were really, really good. I was really very impressed that they were so helpful and advocated a lot for me. They were more than happy for me to breastfeed, which was the one shocking thing. When they do their rounds, we'd be like, oh yeah, we're doing this. Can we do this? And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we want you to feed, like do whatever you need to do. So we started with like her completely on her tummy, turning her head to the side, which was really difficult to feed like that. Trying to like draw the pillows, and then we were feeding, but she was still having bottles of my breast milk. I think she got formula once, and that was during her MRI because it was a wrapped feed for the MRI. But I don't think she had much. But otherwise, yeah, like my colostrum, and then I would pump overnight. So they would give them that in the morning, and then they would use that at nighttime to feed her when I wasn't there. But we gradually worked our way up to adding in a couple feeds with her a day, and then I just did more and more. And then when we finally got the okay, and the lactation consultant was like, we need to start doing top-ups because like she's fine and she's got enough chunk on her. She had a catheter in. We can see her output really easily if it changes. Because I was like, oh, do I need to do an SNS line to feed her to add that little extra bit while we were feeding? And she's like, no, your supply is fine. That's not the problem. We just get her on more. So I used nipple shields for the first couple of weeks. I've never used them before. They were absolutely a godsend. And I'm really grateful that I had them there. We fairly quickly were like, we can't feed her on her tummy. Can we change her? They're like, oh, yeah, sure. Whatever you need, put her on her side. Thanks, Baz. We should know it from the start. Yeah, no, feeding her on the side, it was difficult, and there was definitely many feeds where I was in tears, and the lactation consultants are there, so helpful, helping me out. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. She's getting stressed out, or she's bothered, or something had happened, and there's a couple of times where I just had to get up and put her in her bed and just walk away because I'm just like, I can't do this. But it was because she kept wanting to feed and was insistent on feeding and keeping trying that we kept going, because I mentally could not.
Yeah.
But she's still breastfed.
Amazing. One. Beautiful. Everything that you've shared, I'm very grateful for you coming on and sharing. It's a very vulnerable story. And I'm just wondering how you were support-wise. Like, have you sought support for yourself, social support or anything?
Yeah, I have. I think around the 4-month mark. Yeah, between 3 and 4 months postpartum, I sought out a psychologist near me, recommended by my GP. I've never had such a good recommendation from my GP. She works with a lot of mums, and she's beautiful. I still see her telehealth now because she's moved away. That was definitely life-saving because once I hit 4 months, I hit burnout completely. All my depletions showed up of everything that I just did not have to use in my body, and she was really helpful with that, getting onto different minerals and supplements to help me. I have a good support up where I am as well. There's a lot of other mums, a good support group for birthing mums up here. My best friend lives 20 minutes from me, and we'd prepped as well with some postpartum meals prior, and then a meal train was set up for me as well when we got home. So thankfully I did have that support. I didn't have to think about a lot of that for quite a while. And then when I did need to see someone, I was thankfully proactive because that can be hard to do. Yeah, and that's just been like a gradual kind of working away. I think it was until she was about 10 months old that I sat down with someone and actually spoke out her story in full, because prior to that I just done bits and pieces and hadn't actually sat and gone through it all. So yeah, it took me quite a bit to be able to do that, but yeah, so it's all a journey, and healing is not linear.
Yeah. Comes in waves. And your body's recovery after having cesarean, because obviously you'd had vaginal births before. What was that like, having that different experience too?
Apparently I did it really well, everyone says.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. I think my body's just very resilient in that aspect of it. It'll put things aside and get to them later, because it definitely gets to it later. But at the time it was like, okay, cool. We need to be present. We have a child that needs us to go see them. We have milk. My milk came in day 3 and was very on time of like, all right, we got to do this. We get this done. As soon as I could walk, I was up. I think so she was born at 3:10 in the afternoon, and by 1 a.m. I was like, okay, I can get up. And I went and I had a shower and I got myself comfy, because I'm like, I need to be ready for when they transfer me to see her so that I can then be active. And that, so it was just very ticking off boxes. I was out walking as much as I could. I had, people taking me down to see her in wheelchairs. And then one night they were taking forever to come and get my milk to take down to her. And I was like, she needs this now. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to walk down. As I walked down, and I didn't have anyone take me down after that. I'm like, okay, cool, I did it. I'm going to do it again. Yeah, I don't know, I just had a routine. I ate well, I hydrated well somehow. I always had my water bottle with me. I had headphones in so I could listen to music whenever I needed to. I wasn't getting enough sleep, but I somehow was okay. I was pumping every 3 hours at night. But no, I felt good. And I knew when I didn't feel good, my husband would often be down with me spending the weekends, and we'd go for walks. And I knew when I'd done enough walking. But I do feel like I healed very well, and a lot of the necessary stuff happened fairly quickly so that I could be as active as I needed to for being in the ward. And then when you move, you have other accommodation and you have to get yourself there and back.
With your choices that you made, do you feel empowered by them?
I do. I hate that I had to make those choices, but I was capable to make those choices, and I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. And knowing what you know now and having the experience that you've had, would you do anything differently if you fell pregnant again?
Not in terms of how I addressed my pregnancy and the care I had in my pregnancy. I wouldn't do anything different. I maybe would be more active in how I advocated for myself with some things postpartum and during my C-section that I wasn't as prepared for.
Yeah. So those that are listening very likely have a breech baby on board. Do you have any advice or words of wisdom or resources? I know you didn't know in your situation until you were in it, but now that you've had the experience, do you have any advice that you'd like to offer?
Do a lot of inner work, and that can look different for everyone, but trusting your body to communicate and listening to each thing that it says, and whether that indicates to go see someone for another opinion, following that and learning to trust the body, looking into what the body does to communicate. What different things does it show that says, I need this or I need that. Like when I knew I needed minerals. So I just hyped up minerals because my energy was low. Other times, you know, it's because something else is going on in the body that maybe you can't deal with. So I just did a lot of self work on myself. I did a lot of trust work, trusting my body to tell me what it needed and surrendering to that. And I had a mum actually tell me that my story encouraged her to do that. So your body can communicate with you, and breech is no scarier than any other birth. It's a little bit different whether you birth vaginally or not, but it is still natural, and I would not try and turn my baby unless I felt they absolutely had to be, because there's a very good reason. As my little girl very clearly said, I need to be in this position and I'm not moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been an honor to listen.
Having me, I'm really glad that I could share, and hopefully it's encouragement and helps other mums to feel empowered in their body as well.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Breech Birth podcast. These stories matter. They stretch what we think we know and bring voice to experiences that need to be heard. I'm so grateful to the women who have shared their experiences with us, raw, real, and full of wisdom. If this episode resonated with you, please follow, share, or leave a review. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Breech Birth Podcast. And if you have a breech story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, may we continue to reclaim the narrative, one story at a time.